Growing up in America shaped the way I think and view the world. My parents worked very hard to provide me with a good life. For most of my life, I had no concept of what it meant to be without necessities such as food, clean water, shelter, clothes, or even healthcare. This American upbringing sheltered me from the harsh realities of the world. By the time I made it through a few semesters of college, I had gained some exposure to the plights of impoverished people around the world. However, I never took the time to really understand or care enough about the suffering that was happening a world away. It wasn't until I actually traveled to this faraway world that I discovered the harsh realities of poverty and suffering that had begun to reshape the way I viewed the world. Nothing I had seen in America or read in a book prepared me for the depths of poverty in Mozambique. Probably one of the nicest and most modern buildings we visited was the Mall of Maputo, but it was close to empty because no one could afford to shop there. Many of the roads in the country are unpaved and trash gets collected in piles on the streets. We went to a market in Manica that had more sellers than buyers and a rat infestation. Many people live on fruits and salsa, which is just cornmeal and water. Some people, including children, are forced to beg for money in the streets just to buy a little food so they do not starve. There is really no comparison to the levels of poverty in Mozambique in America. In America, poor people have options. For the most part, people can get housing, food stamps, and monetary aid from the government. There are also homeless shelters and church programs whose aim is to help the impoverished. There are few such options in Mozambique, mostly due to lack of infrastructure and money. Another disparity that really struck me was the lack of educational opportunities for children in Mozambique. We met a man named Bright who ran a primary school out of an old abandoned church building in the Manica province. He taught almost 200 pupils with just 2 donated chalkboards and some donated textbooks from America. The school had no supplies and there were not even tables or chairs. The school taught mostly Zimbabwean children who could not afford school in Zimbabwe. The harsh reality of this disparity is highlighted when compared to the educational opportunities in America. Children in America are guaranteed an education and they do not have to pay tuition costs to go to school. They attend air-conditioned schools with desks and multiple teachers and even receive school lunches. The American educational system, while it may not be perfect, understands the importance of education and provides opportunities. These opportunities are just as important in Mozambique, but they are harder to come by. During this trip, I have also confronted the harsh realities of diseases and healthcare in the developing world. In America, I never had to worry about getting a disease like tuberculosis or an infection and dying from it. Our healthcare advances protect us from a host of preventable diseases. However, in Africa, the prevalence of disease and death is shockingly high. The number one cause of death for infectious disease is HIV/AIDS, which kills over 1.3 million people a year in Africa. Tuberculosis is also a huge problem. It kills over 430,000 people a year in Africa and is also the number one cause of death for people with HIV and AIDS. In Mozambique alone, it is estimated that 1 in 4 people have malaria. Children are dying from infections and diseases. The child mortality rate in sub-Saharan Africa is 12.9%. Treatment options are severely limited. When people get sick, they have to pay to travel to a clinic that is probably not even equipped with the supplies or medicine they need to get better. There is a vicious cycle of disease and inequality that is linked to poverty. There is no easy solution to the problem, so the cycle will probably continue. Learning about the injustice of disease in the world was especially appalling. One thing that really struck me was the fact that I was able to get my anti-malarial medicine for free in America, yet it is virtually impossible to get it in Mozambique. There simply is not money or infrastructure to support a working healthcare system. There is a lot of injustice and health issues that I was either indifferent to or ignorant of before I came on this trip. I know that my experiences and memories will stay with me for a lifetime, but this trip was important for me on a deeper level as well. My eyes have been open to the suffering and injustice in the world. I have a new broadened worldview. Now I have to go back to my American life. I am definitely going to appreciate my life a whole lot more. This trip has also left me with a sense of calling to be more involved in easing the suffering of those around me. I do not know where this calling will lead me, but I know I will not be content to do nothing. My experiences in Mozambique have pushed me beyond the point where ignorance and indifference are excuses for non-action.